Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to 48 Now. I'm digital host AJ Weist, and legendary Huntsville blues and rock singer Microwave Dave will be performing at St. Stephen's Music Hall this Wednesday. And today, of course, I am joined with none other than the Microwave Dave Gallagher himself. Dave, it is so great to meet you. I've certainly heard a lot about you. How are you doing today?
Thank you, AJ. It's a little cold here. I'm in a very old house in Five Points, and it's 1930 something, coming up on a 100-year-old house before too long. So it's a little
Oh.
drafty, but it's not bad compared to what it could have been. So I'm not complaining. How about you? I guess you guys are nice and well lit up there in the studio.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm warm in here, but that was not the story this morning. I was freezing on my way to work. I'm like, it needs to warm up quick. That is for sure. So, Dave, talk a little bit about Huntsville performing here and what you love about St. Stephen's Music Hall.
Well, I mean, I've been so fortunate and so blessed in being able to be in Huntsville and be able to play the music I love, which is blues, a style that comes and goes in terms of the public acceptance and desire for it. And right now, it's kind of in a not a down phase, but it's kind of in between peaks, I would call it. But I'm still being able to do it, and that's just amazing. The way entertainment works, as I'm sure you know, is things come and go, and there are times when emphasis on things picks them way up, and everybody wants to hear about them, and everybody wants to do them, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you're passe or you're just not really necessary. And while I may not be necessary anymore, I'm still allowed to do what I do, and that's go out and play for people in public. And I can't say enough for how the way the Huntsville music community to start with, and then the overall community has just given me a great place to live my life and to do the work that I love to do.
That's right. And it was here in Huntsville, of course, where you first got inspired for your stage name, Microwave Dave. Would you like to share with our viewers who might not know how you got that stage name?
Well, it was another venue, in fact, a very venerable venue, which is really what St. Stephen's is becoming. The Coffee Clutch Bar in downtown Huntsville was a place where they brought in different kinds of art that you wouldn't normally see as far as recording artists. They would bring in jazz players, they would bring in folk players, singer songwriters, and they brought in artists that were way too expensive for the venue to be able to pay for them. Because they cared enough to bring them and present them to the audience. You had people like Maria Muldaur would come in, or John Hartford. These are people, television stars, things like that, and yet they still did it because it just created an amazing opportunity for people to see great artists in person in about an 80-seat venue. And that's similar to what they've got going over at St. Stephen's. It's a very similar vibe, very friendly, very. I think probably the hardest thing to create in the venue business is a vibe. You can go and you can put up all the decorations in the world, you can arrange the seating, you can do the lighting, you can do the treatments and everything else. That does not guarantee you're going to have a vibe. It takes the people to do that. And the people that have come in there, I think, have a lot to do with it. But I think Evan behind the bar, John, those two guys knew what they were doing and they really had it come off. So I love playing there. It's got a great stage, it's got a great responsive audience, and it's got an audience that can talk and kind of be involved at the same time, and that definitely harkens back to the coffee clutch. As far as my name goes, I had gone in there one night to hear a blues artist named Tinsley Ellis out of Atlanta. Great guy, he's still going too. Great guitar player, and it just so happened that he had left the band that he was a member of, and I thought, oh well, so the substitute guy was coming in. But name artist was Chicago Bob Nelson. Chicago Bob is from Bogalusa, Louisiana, and he lived in Atlanta, but he was still Chicago Bob because Muddy Waters had called him that one time. He was playing with Muddy Waters. So that was it. And I went to hear him and talk to him. And he had talked to me on break. I'd been introduced as a blues artist, although at that time I was playing very little around here. And actually was working out of Nashville at the time. And he said, I've just lost my guitar player and I'm in the middle of an album and I need songs. Do you write? I said, yes, sir, I do. Do you have any songs with you? And back in that era, you would carry a cassette, and the cassette would have your songs and your name and address and that stuff. And I said, no, sir, I didn't come out with any songs tonight. So what I need, how about wait until the last set and sit in and let me hear a couple things you think might be good. So I did. And I got there at the beginning of the last set, and I had a great time with that audience. I was just having probably really too much fun. And what was supposed to be two songs wound up being like four or five. I forgot which. And finally, he got the hook and got me off of his stage so he could get back up there and go to work. And he couldn't remember my last name, Dave Gallagher. So he finally said, "Thank you very much. That was Dave. That was Dave. Dave." He motioning to me to help out. Was my last name, but I'm not helping him at all. And he finally said, "That was Dave the Microwave." And I said, "Well, okay." So I walked home. They left my jacket in the place. I came back the next day, and there was a very intoxicated man sitting at the corner of the bar right next to the stage. And he was in the exact same condition and the exact same clothes he had been in the night before during the performance. And when I walked in the door, he said, "Hey, there's Microwave Dave." And I went, Microwave Dave. Okay. And that's really a blues guy and a local intoxicated man are where I got my name.
That is incredible. I love that so much. Dave the Microwave. Oh, hilarious. But as you've mentioned, you've lived here in Huntsville for quite some time. How much of Huntsville has changed over the years, and how much has stayed the same?
Well, a lot of change, of course, physically. The growth, especially in the last 15 years, has been exponential. And I think the amount of work they put into keeping it as a great community and yet still enhancing the ability to attract people who want to come here and maybe make a home here, especially the younger people, young family oriented people, has been amazing. I think that's really good. Also, the emphasis that the Huntsville Music Office is put on making it user friendly for the musicians. And I can't think of any place I have been in my life, and I've lived in a lot major cities. I mean, I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Texas, Amarillo, Dallas, Houston. I lived in Atlanta. And I went to service, and I was in Virginia, and I was let's see, Texas again, Vietnam, and then back, and then I went to music school in Boston, and I lived in Miami, Florida. And came up this way. I've lived in all these places, and none of them have done that kind of an effort for musicians, except for here in Huntsville. I've never seen it anywhere else. The first thing I noticed about Huntsville when I came through here in the 70s was that the quality of musicians playing in local venues was very high. Great singers, and they weren't doing much original music. This was back in the day when you'd have a house band playing 5 or 6 nights a week, and that was Jermaine. What you saw in you venues out here, and those guys and women were really, really good at what they did. They would cover songs that were popular, but they also had things that you hadn't heard before, and they were very supportive of each other. The first couple of nights I went around, I think this was 1974. I came in right behind a huge tornado in '74. The band I was with camped out behind the Montesano Amphitheater, and they had just had this terrible tornado in '74 that had torn up a lot and caused a number of deaths. It just pretty much changed the infrastructure down there on the Parkway and Drake Avenue and all that, right up the mountain. So it was an impressive time to see people and to see them all pulled together doing things. But I go out to hear a band, and somebody say, "Well, while I'm glad you're here, but while you're out, be sure you go over to the Cotton Club." And hear Big Ben Atkins, hear how he sings. He's great. And you go to hear Big Ben, Big Ben say, "Hey, that's great, but you're a guitar player, right? Be sure you go over to the Favors. We got a guy named Danny Hall. Go hear Danny Hall." So I go over to hear Dan. I'm like, wow, this guy's national caliber. And they all sent you around to see each other. It was a mutually supportive situation. And believe me, in the music scene, that is not standard. Cutthroat is probably more standard than anything. So I was very impressed with the community of the musicians at the time when I first came here and met them.
Yeah, that is so great. And you got to love a strong community together, that is for sure. But now there's a whole day here in Huntsville in October called Microwave Dave Day. Talk a little about the annual day here in the Rocket City and how does it feel to have a day named after you?
I wish everybody could have one. And I really wish everybody had it. You have a birthday, right? We all have a birthday. We get celebrated and all that. But it's a little different. It's kind of like riding in a parade all day and everybody's waving at you and wishing you well. Everybody you see all day long. It's um, it's amazing, really. And I don't really know how to express it. I do wish everybody could have that experience because you sure feel differently about the people you live with. You might have people that you disagree with, maybe about politics or about civics or whatever, and there's none of that going on a day like that. You're being treated just as who you are for being a musical person or just a neighbor. It doesn't matter. And I think it's pretty amazing to have that. And I wish everybody could have that experience. But it's been after I was reluctant to do it to start with, it's been something I'm really glad it's turned out because it's really allowed us to grow up this Microwave Dave Music Education Foundation, which, by the way, officially is not my idea. I don't run it. I don't supervise it. I have nothing to do with other than showing up to play for the school children, which is something I've been doing most of my life anyway. So they have organized all of that and made it possible through Microwave Dave Day to raise funds from donations so that when local musicians go into the school, they get paid for going in there. And most musicians that I know are working day jobs. They work a day job and they play in the evening because it's really hard to support yourself in the modern economy on what you make playing, say, in a bar or a restaurant. It doesn't pay that well. So you have to just keep going with some other line of work. And so if you take time off your day job to go to play at a school for a bunch of kids, that's great, except for you're going to lose your wages for that particular time. Well, the foundation makes up for that by taking the donations and paying all the musicians to go do it. And that's just an amazing concept to me that we get to do that. But 10 years in, it's still going. And I'm so proud of what happens when I see what those musicians here in town do for the children and for the teachers. The responses are tremendous.
Absolutely. It sounds like a very awesome foundation. But talk a bit about blues music. What is it about blues that makes it such a truly unique genre of music?
It has a way of displacing fear and unhappiness. It has a way of displacing things that make you feel bad through expressing them to start with. And also, when you express them, you find other people who have been through the same experience. They know this experience and they'll respond or they will interact in such a way that lets you know, number one, you're not alone, and number two, you're not unique in having this bad feeling about something. But blues is about feelings in general, so a lot of it is also about celebrating, and it's about being excited about something or up. But if you're having a bad time, somebody can get up there and sing about your bad time, and you're like, "Whoa, that's exactly what I'm feeling." I understand exactly what she's singing about.
Right.
Then that it makes a difference, and it's had that. I always called it America's first and best self-help program because back before that, when the people had nothing at all except for music, and they couldn't do their own music very much back then. The people were people came from slavery. They had very few options in life, if any, and so when they had their own music, they were able to at least illustrate to themselves and their friends, sometimes using double entendre code words to say things that would get them in trouble otherwise. They were able to take that and express it in a way that got it off their chest. And we all know how it is if you have a chance to talk over problems with a good friend or something like that, it always gets better, right? So that's a function. And then you have the artistic aspect of it, of taking a simple format and then creating things within that framework to fill that frame with whatever is going on within a 2 or 3 minute period. It's an amazing opportunity.
Very true. And you've certainly learned to play a multitude of different instruments apart from guitar, such as ukulele, trumpet, French horn, and accordion. Do you have one in particular you enjoy playing the most, or does it just kind of depend?
Well, I've actually worked my way away from all that. I used to be when I worked out in Nashville. I would call it's what they call a utility player, and you would be in the band to cover a bunch of different instruments for what they needed. Like if all of a sudden they needed a fiddle part, well, you're up there playing the fiddle part. If they need a harmonica, you're up there playing the harmonica or the trumpet or whatever. And guitar has been my main instrument really since I started studying music. Got out of school bands and all that. But when I started studying, I went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston, and that's a jazz school, but I went there with guitar as my main instrument, and the it's still the thing that was just the most natural for me to express myself on. And so I have to say that's my main focus now. I rarely ever play anything else.
Very true. And for anyone who's never seen Microwave Dave perform, what can they expect this Wednesday?
Well, this is different. This is the only place, one of very few places, at least, where I go out with an acoustic guitar. I am not a singer-songwriter. I do write and I do have play original songs. But when you think of a singer-songwriter, you think of a certain style of music and you think of things put out a certain way. So doing that with an acoustic guitar is not my comfort zone at all. I'm used to making some noise with an electric guitar and getting a good groove going and that kind of stuff. So that's what I do. It's just different. It puts me in this place where I come out and know more of the values of the songs themselves as structures rather than as frameworks, as I was just speaking of. The song exists on its own, and so that's what I'll be doing. Now, they've when they started out over there at St. Stephen's, they went for original music, and they really wanted an atmosphere where people could come and sit and listen and yet still be comfortable to have a word with somebody sitting next to them. And they've really achieved that there. It's very good. So you can come out and you can play a song that's just, nice, something nice to sit and listen to, and it makes you enjoy and groove. On the other hand, you can play something with some lyrics that need to be listened to be understood, and they will get across. So that's what happens for me. I get to get out songs that I don't normally do if I'm not playing for a night of people out having fun with the blues.
That's right. It sounds like a great time, that is for sure. Earlier, you mentioned that you served in Vietnam and also you attended Berkeley after to pursue your dreams. What would you say you learned in your early life that really propelled your career forward?
Well, music has been there for me at every turn. There's never been a time where music did not serve what I was doing or did not serve what I needed. Not necessarily in terms of financial welfare, but it's always paid. And it's just always been the thing that came out of me naturally. So I would say that from the time I started playing, which was around age 10, it's always been something that I could count on. And it's always been something that I took great joy in. And once I found out that joy can be contagious, that you can actually make somebody else feel better about themselves for a while, either an hour or a day or however it runs, that you've really got something. And I still, at this point now, I have people coming up to me when I meet them out in public. They say, "You won't remember this, but back in 1990, I was having the worst day of my life, and you were playing so and so, and you played this song, and you looked right at me and sang this line, and that one line just changed the way I felt about everything." Well, of course, I have no idea that's happening out there. You offer the music, and you hope people will take something from it that's what they need, but it's pretty much a faith-based operation that you're putting it out there, and that's what they will get and take home. So that still happens. That I found that out very much while I was in Vietnam. I was at a big base, Tan Son, which is a huge air base there at Saigon, and we had clubs all over it. And I got into a multiracial band. It was primarily black because we were playing soul music, and we had a lot of black soldiers and a lot of black, people working over there in the field who did not have their music being played in those bars except for when this little band showed up, the rotations. So we were always having a full audience of people that wanted to hear contemporary soul music. And back in those days, that would have been the Temptations, Junior Walker and the All Stars, James Brown, Otis Redding. That was the kind of stuff that we did back then. And I saw the effect that it had on people. That the people who were over there in an unhappy situation, sometimes we were there during the Tet Offensive and the May Offensive in 1968, where you actually you fear for your life. You sit there under rocket attacks and mortar attacks, and you don't know if you're going to make it through or not. And I'd say that with that and seeing what music would do to take people temporarily out of that situation and into a better state of mind, feeling more like themselves as they would back home, that was worth it. I think one of the strongest feelings of that was playing in the Long Bend jail. That was a place down in Long Bend, about 40 miles away from Tonsanute, and that's where American troops who had gotten into legal trouble were housed in this pretty ramshackle pen. It was a big pen with some shacks in it, and it was heavily guarded. But you had a lot of people who were locked up over there. Whether it was a small offense or a big offense, I mean, they had people who had killed somebody in there with the people who didn't get their hair cut right. It's all mixed together, and that was a pretty severe thing. And they asked us to come down and play. So we came right into the jail and played for them. And I watched their faces as we took them out of that space and we took them into what they remembered and into what they looked forward to when they finally got out of here and got everything done. It's amazing what music can do, and especially when it's being played with a feeling by somebody who means what they say. So a long explanation, AJ, and I'm sorry about that, but it's been proven to me time and time again, and I think run on that more than anything else.
Wow, very well said, and do not feel sorry to at all. That was incredible. Gosh, why are you so cool? You are so cool.
Not
But
not to me, I promise you. Yeah.
Microwave Dave, looking back at your career, whether it's your solo career or with the Nukes, the rotations, like you just mentioned, what are some moments or memories, some other moments and memories, rather, that you've made that you really hold near and dear?
Wow. At this age, there's a lot of them, and it's almost like having to open up a Rolodex and start pull cards out and look at them to see what you're thinking, and go through a big file on your computer. But there have been lots and lots of really some of the small things. Like I said, somebody come up and telling you something that happened that was positive when they were enjoying your music, or when you played for somebody's wedding and the wedding reception, and they remember that. And they've been married 35 years, and they've got kids and everything. It just that's all stuff too. But on the other hand, we were very fortunate to have a record we covered, a cover of a Bo Diddley song, Roadrunner. I've got my Roadrunner. My mother sent me this. I can't get on the camera here. Here we go.
There it
My
is.
road
Yeah.
there it is, Roadrunner. My mom sent me that on my birthday one year because was a song we did that was popular in town. And when we did our second album with Johnny Stanley producing, and Johnny Stanley had produced, big songs for the Allman Brothers and Widespread Panic and a bunch of others. That became our hit record in Europe, and we had 4 tours of Europe off of that. So all of that in the year 1996 was a very memorable, being among people of another culture, and they treated us differently than we were treated at home. We here we're pretty much nightclub entertainers, and we're just here doing what we do. Over there, they treated you like you were artists, and you were very deeply important to everything, and so you had to really be careful that when you came back from Europe, you didn't go walking into a local bar with that attitude on your head because you quickly get it knocked right off of you again. It wasn't good. So that I would say is one thing, and then probably really playing for the children when you go in and demonstrate the blues and the effect that live music makes when people are playing it who love it, and people are playing what they love and what that does to an audience. That's probably the most. We have a lot of videos and stuff where kids have just broken out dancing, and we're playing something, and they start dancing. And a lot of these kids, third, fourth graders, they don't really have dance dances worked up. They're not in step. They're not in styles. They're just moving and celebrating what feels right to them. And I think those moments are absolutely hard to break.
That's right. Do you have any advice for anyone trying to make it into the music industry today? What would
Yeah,
you say? Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Don't do it. Yeah, it's if there's nothing else you can do because you can't stand anything else, like you love this, then okay, go ahead. But realize that the way it is set now, it is so heavily stacked against being able to make a good living, except for a very small number of people who are farmed in basic, a lot of times based on the way they look as much as the way they perform. The era I came up in, which valued songwriters and bands and things of that nature. You're talking about the 50s into the 60s, especially into the 70s. It's different now. Everything is a product, and they've taken away most of your ability to make money off of selling your product through streaming. Streaming has been really negative effect on musicians, other than getting their name and their face out there and the songs out there. It's not really a good way to make a living. So I tell people to don't think about it if you're just going to have fun. If you want to play in a band for a few years, or do it, have fun, but be looking at some other way to make a living, because you cannot depend on this being what they call a revenue stream, as they say now. You cannot count on that to be there. I've been very lucky, but it's just not something that's built into the way entertainment is done now. It's all kind of codified into a certain way. So if it's something that you absolutely have to do, then by all means go do it and give it all you got and be ready for disappointment. You're going to get a lot of disappointment. But then if you think about going into a sport, you're going to lose ball games, right? You're going to lose and you're going to lose and you're going to have wins, and the wins are big and the losses hurt. It's the same as that, but you have to be ready for that aspect. So I tell people, and by all means, nurture your talent. If you have musical talent, nurture that and learn how to play well, because there's a lot of ways to play without doing it for a living. Yeah, I mean, you can get into a praise band with a church. You can get into a community band. You can have just friends that gather together, or you can do tributes, all kinds of stuff, without having to depend on it and to upset a family lifestyle or anything else around your life commercially, to try to do it as a full-time thing where you're traveling on the road. It's just changed a lot over probably the last, I'd say, 20 years.
Right. So, entirely new world, it seems like. But, Dave, what would you say you're most excited about at your performance this Wednesday?
Well, Evan Billiter, who's behind the bar there, and one of the owners of that place, is the president of the Microwave Dave Music Education Foundation. He's a great guy. He also always is our MC when we go to play for the children in the schools. He knows how to talk to the kids. He's a guy who feels music greatly. And he creates an atmosphere in there that just makes it fun to work. So I look forward to that. And they have a good sounding stage. They have sound is, of course, a big thing. When you go into a place, you never know what you're going to have, even if you carry your own sound system in. And they've got it set up there very well. So it's very conducive to get up there and just forgetting all the factors and just doing a good job with your music and your audience and the feelings between you. So I look forward to that a lot. And I always get to see people that I haven't seen in a while. For a new place, just like it's been there forever, it's got that feeling of having been there forever. How they've accomplished that, I don't know. For people like me who have been there forever, it's pretty nice to see it put together the way they have done it.
That's right. Well, Dave, that's all the questions I have today. Thank you so much for joining in. And if maybe I didn't ask something that you'd like to add, feel free. But once again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. All I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who has ever come to a show, everyone who has called on us to come and be in a holiday parade, or to come and play at a school, or come and play at their home to help them celebrate something. Celebrating is one of the best things a band gets to do, is help people celebrate. So I would just say thank you. And the regard people have given us, they treat us like we're some kind of celebrities, when really we're not. We're local musicians who have been very fortunate to keep working. But the fact that we're treated with this regard is pretty amazing. And again, I wish everybody had that. Everybody at least had a day of that, because it makes how you feel about yourself and your neighbors and your community different. You can't help it. So that I would like to see it. So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone.
That's right. And thank you as well. Break a leg this Wednesday. You're going to kill it. I know it. But Microwave Dave, thank you so much.